Former Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane had retired from the Navy SEALs 11 months ago after a career-defining mission in Syria went catastrophically wrong in ways that would haunt him every waking moment. At 41 years old, Marcus had been the team leader for a high-stakes hostage extraction operation when intelligence indicated the target building was clear of civilians. It wasn't clear. The intelligence was fatally wrong. The breach resulted in 3 hostage deaths along with the enemy combatants, children caught in crossfire that never should have happened because they never should have been in that building, according to the intelligence Marcus relied upon. Research on U.S. operations in Syria showed that civilian casualties from special operations were tragically common, with thousands of civilians killed during the anti-ISIS campaign when targeting protocols were disregarded or intelligence proved inaccurate. One particularly horrific 2019 bombing killed as many as 70 women and children, and civilian casualty rates in Syria operations were documented at approximately 10 times higher than similar operations in Afghanistan. The after-action investigation cleared Marcus of wrongdoing, attributing the tragedy entirely to faulty intelligence provided by external sources. But Marcus knew a truth that kept him awake every night. He'd felt something was wrong during the approach, sensed the intelligence didn't match ground observation, and proceeded anyway because questioning command intelligence wasn't protocol in time-sensitive hostage situations. Those 3 children died because Marcus followed orders instead of trusting his instincts. He took early retirement rather than accept another command position, unable to trust his judgment after it failed catastrophically when lives depended on it most. PTSD symptoms in veterans commonly included guilt, difficulty sleeping, severe anxiety, and detachment from others. Marcus exhibited crushing survivor's guilt, a specific manifestation where individuals fixate on perceived failures during traumatic events. Now Marcus lived in a small cabin in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, working as a wilderness guide, leading backpacking trips, and teaching outdoor survival skills to corporate groups seeking team-building experiences. It was honest work that required minimal human connection and absolutely zero life-or-death decisions. His clients didn't know he used to plan operations that shaped geopolitical outcomes and saved American lives. He preferred it that way. His companion was Odin, an 8-year-old German shepherd who'd been Marcus's K-9 partner for 4 deployments spanning Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. Odin had specialized in combat search and rescue operations, extensively trained to locate downed personnel, detect survivors in collapsed structures following explosions, and navigate hostile terrain to find casualties under extreme combat conditions. When Marcus retired voluntarily citing psychological reasons, Odin retired with him under the military working dog adoption program. German shepherds were renowned for their intelligence, loyalty, strong work ethic, and ability to maintain operational capabilities despite aging and retirement. The German shepherd still exhibited search behaviors constantly during their mountain hikes, alerting to distant scents, investigating terrain anomalies with tactical focus, maintaining the operational vigilance that had defined 9 years of military service. Marcus didn't redirect these behaviors. Odin needed purpose as much as Marcus did, and if phantom searches on empty mountains provided that, Marcus wouldn't take it away. On a grey February morning, when temperatures hovered near freezing and mist reduced visibility across Olympic National Forest, Marcus was leading a solo conditioning hike on a remote trail. Difficult terrain he used to maintain fitness between client trips. Odin accompanied him off-leash as always, ranging ahead with the disciplined freedom of a working dog who understood boundaries perfectly. At approximately 7:45 hours, 4 miles into the hike on a trail Marcus had run weekly for months, Odin suddenly stopped, body rigid, head elevated, nostrils flaring. The unmistakable alert posture Marcus recognized from hundreds of operational deployments. Marcus's tactical instincts activated immediately, despite 11 months of civilian life. Odin didn't produce false alerts. 9 years of combat operations across multiple theaters proved that conclusively. Marcus moved quickly to the dog's position and gave the operational command from their deployment days. "Show me." Odin didn't bark or whine. Instead, he moved deliberately off-trail toward a steep ravine approximately 50 yards from the main path, navigating carefully down through dense undergrowth and unstable rock with tactical precision. Marcus followed, recognizing this as Odin executing a trained search pattern toward confirmed human scent detection. 30 yards down the ravine slope, Odin stopped beside what appeared to be a natural depression obscured by fallen branches and accumulated debris. Marcus approached and saw what triggered Odin's alert. A woman, approximately late 20s, partially concealed under brush and deadfall, severely injured and barely conscious. She was wearing technical trail running gear, compression tights, moisture-wicking jacket, GPS watch, but the clothing was torn and blood-soaked. Her positioning and the disturbed terrain and above suggested she either fell or was pushed down the ravine and couldn't climb back up. Marcus's combat medic training overrode everything else: guilt, retirement, civilian identity. He knelt beside her and began immediate assessment. Pulse, rapid and thready at approximately 130 beats per minute, indicating severe shock. Breathing, labored with possible pneumothorax from broken ribs, visible injuries, massive head trauma with palpable skull depression suggesting intracranial bleeding, compound fracture of the left femur with bone exposed through torn skin, defensive wounds on forearms suggesting she fought an attacker before the fall, massive bruising on torso consistent with blunt force trauma from repeated strikes. This woman didn't just fall during a run. She was beaten severely, then either fell while escaping or was deliberately thrown down this ravine. She'd been here for hours, losing blood, going into hypovolemic shock, and would die without immediate hospital intervention. Marcus performed rapid triage assessment. The woman needed trauma surgery he absolutely couldn't provide in the field, but her condition was so critical that moving her risked causing fatal hemorrhage or further brain trauma from spinal injury. His location was 4 miles from the trailhead with 0 cell service. The tactical decision required choosing between 2 catastrophically bad options: stay with her and hope someone finds them before she bleeds out, or leave her with Odin while he runs for help, knowing she might die before rescue arrives. Marcus made the shocking decision that changed everything. He wasn't calling 911 and waiting. He wasn't staying here hoping for rescue. He was carrying her out himself right now, because waiting meant she dies, and he's not failing another casualty when he has the skills and strength to prevent it. The decision violated every wilderness first aid protocol. Moving a trauma victim with potential spinal injury and active hemorrhaging could kill her during transport. But Marcus's combat experience taught him something civilian. Rescue protocols don't acknowledge. Sometimes the only chance of survival is aggressive action that accepts massive risk because doing nothing guarantees death. He'd extracted wounded operators under hostile fire through worse terrain than this. This woman was dying in his custody. He wasn't waiting 4 hours for mountain rescue to arrive with proper equipment when he could be at the trailhead in 90 minutes if he moved immediately. Marcus applied field-expedient trauma management using techniques from combat medicine, used his belt to create an improvised tourniquet above the compound femur fracture to control arterial bleeding, stabilized her neck using his jacket and trekking poles to create a cervical collar, wrapped her torso in his emergency bivvy to prevent further heat loss and provide abdominal support. Then he did what SEAL training prepared him for, lifted her carefully in a fireman's carry position, adjusted her weight distribution to minimize spinal movement, and began moving downhill toward the trailhead with Odin leading the path and clearing obstacles. The 4-mile descent with 135 pounds of injured woman became the hardest physical challenge Marcus had faced since retirement. His legs screamed with lactic acid build-up. His back threatened to give out from the asymmetric load. Every step risked causing the injuries that would kill her. But Marcus didn't stop. He maintained controlled pace despite exhaustion, managed his breathing using techniques from Hell Week, talked to the semi-conscious woman using the calm, authoritative tone he'd used with wounded operators who needed to hear someone was fighting for them. Odin maintained point position, occasionally stopping to check on Marcus, exhibiting the protective behaviors from their deployment days when extracting casualties under hostile conditions. At mile 3, Marcus's right knee, damaged during a parachute landing years ago, began failing. Each step sent shooting pain through the joint. At mile 2, the woman regained partial consciousness and began moaning, increasing the risk she'd struggle and cause further injury. Marcus kept talking. "Stay still. I've got you. We're almost there. Don't fight me." At mile 1, Marcus's vision started tunneling from extreme exertion, and his heart rate spiked dangerously high. But he didn't stop, because stopping meant she dies, and he was already responsible for 3 dead children in Syria. He wasn't adding her to that count. Marcus reached the trailhead in 87 minutes, collapsing beside his truck with the woman still in his arms. Cell service connected. He called 911, provided his location, described critical injuries requiring immediate air medical transport. The dispatcher connected him to Harborview Medical Center's flight operations. A helicopter was dispatched with 12-minute ETA. Marcus maintained trauma management, monitored her airway, controlled bleeding, treated for shock, until the helicopter arrived. The flight medic who took custody of the casualty looked at Marcus, sweat-soaked, shaking from exertion, obviously in severe pain, and asked the question that defined everything. "You carried her 4 miles with those injuries. You could have killed her moving her like that. Why didn't you wait for mountain rescue?" Marcus's answer was simple and devastating. "Because waiting would have killed her. I chose risk over certainty. Sometimes that's the only choice that matters." The woman was flown immediately to Harborview Medical Center and rushed into emergency surgery for life-threatening injuries. Marcus provided his statement to responding sheriff's deputies. He found her during a routine hike when his dog alerted, assessed her critical condition, made the tactical decision to extract her himself rather than wait for rescue. The deputies documented the scene carefully, photographed the ravine location, and collected forensic evidence suggesting this wasn't an accident. The defensive wounds, the pattern of injuries, the indication someone else was involved in creating this situation. 3 days later, Marcus received a call from Detective Sarah Reeves with the King County Sheriff's Office. "The woman you found is Emily Chen, 28, a software engineer from Seattle," Detective Reeves explained carefully. "She went for a morning trail run 2 days before you found her and never returned. Her boyfriend reported her missing that evening. We deployed search teams, but couldn't locate her in that massive terrain. Based on her injuries and forensic evidence we collected, we believe her boyfriend attacked her during the run, beat her severely, and pushed her into the ravine, assuming she'd die from injuries and exposure before anyone found her." Marcus processed this. Emily was left to die by someone she trusted and only survived because Odin detected her from 50 yards away through dense terrain that had defeated organized search efforts with multiple teams. The detective continued. "Her doctors say the compound femur fracture was causing severe arterial bleeding. Based on blood loss calculations and exposure time, she wouldn't have survived another hour maximum. Your decision to carry her out, despite the significant risk of causing additional injuries, saved her life. She's critical, but stable now. She wants to meet you when she's conscious enough." 2 weeks later, Marcus visited Emily in the ICU. She was bandaged extensively, intubated for breathing support, barely conscious, but her eyes tracked him when he entered. Her written note, she couldn't speak due to intubation, asked the question everyone had asked. "Why did you carry me out? Protocols say wait for rescue." Marcus's answer was honest. "Because protocols assume rescue arrives in time. You were dying. Waiting guaranteed you'd die. Carrying you meant a chance you'd survive. I chose the chance." Emily's recovery took 3 months. Multiple surgeries to repair the femur and address internal injuries, extensive physical therapy, psychological trauma counseling for both the attack and near-death experience. Her boyfriend, Daniel Park, was arrested and charged with attempted murder. Forensic evidence strongly supported the prosecution's theory. Daniel attacked Emily during their trail run after she discovered he'd been systematically stealing from her bank accounts, beat her unconscious with rocks, pushed her into the ravine, and reported her missing to establish an alibi. He assumed she'd die from injuries and exposure, her death ruled accidental. He didn't account for a retired SEAL with a combat search and rescue dog deciding that protocols matter less than outcomes. During Daniel's trial, Marcus testified about the rescue. The defense attorney aggressively challenged his decision to move Emily. "You violated wilderness first aid protocols. You could have caused her death through improper movement. Why should we believe your actions were heroic rather than reckless?" Marcus's response became a viral moment when trial footage was released to media. "I'm a Navy SEAL. I spent 15 years making decisions where failure meant death. I carried wounded operators through hostile fire across worse terrain than that trail. I extracted casualties from collapsed buildings under enemy fire. Moving her 4 miles down a trail wasn't heroic. It was just applying skills to a situation that required them. The reckless choice would have been letting her die because protocols said wait for help that wouldn't arrive in time." The jury deliberated for 90 minutes and returned a guilty verdict on all counts. Daniel Park received a 28-year sentence for attempted murder. Emily attended sentencing in a wheelchair. She'd walk again eventually, but recovery required ongoing therapy. After sentencing, Emily's family approached Marcus with a request that terrified him. "Emily wants to thank you properly. Would you visit her?" Marcus agreed, uncomfortable with gratitude, but understanding the human need for closure after trauma. At Emily's family home, where she was recovering, she explained what happened during those hours in the ravine. "I woke up several times. The first time, I thought I was dying alone. The second time, I felt warm fur against my side and heard breathing. I thought I was hallucinating from hypothermia. The third time, I heard your voice telling me to stay still, that you had me, that we were almost there. I survived because you refused to let me die. But I need to know something. Why? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. Why risk your career, your safety, everything, for a stranger?" Marcus struggled to answer because the truth was complicated. 11 months ago, I failed to save 3 children in Syria because I followed protocols and intelligence instead of trusting my instincts that something was wrong. I left the SEALs because I couldn't trust my judgment anymore after that failure. Then my dog found you, and I had to choose. Follow protocols that said wait for rescue, or trust my judgment that said you'd die if I waited. I chose to trust myself again. You didn't save me, Emily, but saving you reminded me that sometimes the right call is the one everyone says is wrong. Emily's response changed everything. "I've spent 3 months researching you. You extracted wounded operators during combat operations. You have skills that civilians don't possess. There are people who get hurt in wilderness areas every year. Falls, attacks, accidents, who die before traditional rescue arrives. People like me. What if you could do this systematically instead of accidentally? What if there was a way to use your skills without needing another war?" Over the following weeks, Emily, a software engineer with expertise in emergency response systems, developed a detailed proposal, a rapid response civilian extraction service for critical wilderness trauma cases where waiting for traditional rescue meant death. The concept, trained personnel with military medical and extraction experience partnered with search and rescue dogs, positioned strategically to deploy when standard. Rescue response times exceeded survival windows. The turning point came when Emily secured initial funding from a trauma research foundation, recruited emergency medicine specialists willing to develop protocols, and asked Marcus to lead the operational development. His first response was immediate refusal. He left the SEALs specifically to avoid high-stakes decisions where his judgment determined life or death. But Emily countered with logic he couldn't dismiss. "You already proved your judgment works when you saved my life by violating protocols. The only difference between that rescue and this proposal is doing it systematically instead of accidentally. Your mistake in Syria doesn't define your capability. It defines your caution, and caution backed by exceptional skill is exactly what this work needs." Marcus committed to the project, driven less by Emily's encouragement and more by recognition that his refusal to wait for rescue gave him back something Syria took: trust in his judgment when stakes are highest. Over 8 months, Marcus developed rapid trauma extraction teams, small units of retired military personnel with combat medical training paired with search and rescue dogs equipped for technical terrain extraction, positioned across Washington state to respond when traditional rescue couldn't reach casualties in time. 18 months after finding Emily in that ravine, Marcus's organization had completed 23 rapid extractions, cases where victims would statistically have died before mountain rescue arrived, but survived because Marcus's teams reached them within critical time windows. The model challenged traditional wilderness rescue protocols but produced results that couldn't be argued. 17 survivors who wouldn't have made it under standard response times. Marcus discovered that rapid extraction provided what SEAL operations couldn't: clear moral purpose without geopolitical complexity or ethical ambiguity. Every mission was straightforward: reach the dying, extract before they're dead, accept the risk that aggressive action might cause harm because inaction guarantees death. Odin thrived in the work, his combat search and rescue training translating seamlessly to civilian applications, his detection capabilities consistently exceeding civilian SAR dog standards. Emily fully recovered and became the organization's operations director, managing logistics and coordinating with traditional rescue services who initially viewed Marcus's approach as dangerously reckless, but now requested his teams for cases exceeding their response capabilities. She and Marcus developed a partnership built on shared understanding. Both had nearly died to violence and circumstances. Emily to her attacker, Marcus to the guilt that would have consumed him if he'd stopped trusting his judgment. And both found renewal through purpose that honored their skills without demanding their souls. 2 years after Odin found Emily in the ravine, Marcus was featured in a medical journal article about wilderness trauma extraction protocols. The article's author asked the question everyone in emergency medicine debated: you violated wilderness first aid protocols by moving a critical trauma victim. Traditional rescue doctrine says you could have killed her. How do you justify that decision? Marcus's answer became the foundation for new rapid extraction protocols adopted by multiple agencies. Protocols exist to prevent harm when proper resources will arrive in time. But when proper resources won't arrive in time, protocols become barriers to survival rather than pathways. Emily was dying from arterial hemorrhage and exposure. Mountain rescue was 4 hours away minimum. I was there with combat extraction skills and a working dog. The question isn't whether moving her violated protocols, it's whether letting her die to follow protocols would have been morally defensible. I chose to accept the risk of causing harm over the certainty of allowing death. Sometimes that's not reckless, it's just honest about what survival requires when perfect options don't exist. 3 years after that February morning, Marcus had trained 11 other rapid trauma extraction teams across 3 states, partnering retired special operations personnel with search and rescue dogs for rapid wilderness casualty extraction. Odin, now 11 and slowing with age-related arthritis, remained operational, completing 6 to 8 extractions annually while training younger SAR dogs in advanced detection techniques. Marcus also began speaking at military transition conferences, using his experience to help other veterans recognize that skills developed during service could find meaningful application. I left the SEALs believing my judgment was permanently broken after Syria, he told one group. 3 children died because I followed protocols instead of trusting my instincts. For 11 months, I avoided any situation requiring judgment under pressure. Then my dog found a dying woman, and I had to choose: follow protocols or trust myself. I chose trust. That decision saved a life and gave me back something Syria took: confidence that my judgment works when it matters most. Your transition isn't about abandoning your skills. It's about finding applications that honor them. 4 years after finding Emily, Marcus received the National Association for Search and Rescue's Distinguished Service Award for revolutionary contributions to wilderness trauma extraction and integration of military combat medicine into civilian rescue operations. During his acceptance speech, he was asked, "What shocked everyone about your decision to carry Emily Chen 4 miles?" Marcus's answer became the foundation of a documentary about rapid trauma extraction. What shocked people wasn't the physical feat. SEALs routinely carry wounded teammates through worse conditions. What shocked them was that I violated protocols everyone believed were sacrosanct. Wilderness first aid doctrine says, don't move critical trauma victims. Wait for proper equipment and trained rescue personnel. That doctrine is correct when rescue arrives in time. But Emily was dying, and rescue was 4 hours away. The shocking part wasn't my decision. It was the realization that sometimes protocols designed to prevent harm actually guarantee death when circumstances exceed their assumptions. I didn't ignore protocols recklessly. I recognized their limitations and acted accordingly. That's judgment, not heroism. The documentary ended with footage of Marcus and Odin during a winter extraction. The German shepherd navigating through deep snow with focused intensity, detecting a severely injured hiker, coordinating extraction that saved a life. Marcus's voiceover played, "People ask why Odin detected Emily when professional search teams didn't. The answer, military working dogs are trained for combat conditions that exceed civilian parameters. Odin spent 9 years finding casualties in war zones. Finding an injured runner in a ravine wasn't exceptional for him. It was Tuesday. The exceptional part was me recognizing that protocols matter less than outcomes when someone's dying, and you're the only one there with skills to prevent it." 5 years after that February morning, Marcus had expanded rapid trauma extraction teams to 7 states, trained 18 teams, and documented 39 lives saved in situations where traditional rescue response times exceeded survival windows. The German shepherd who found a severely injured woman in a ravine didn't just save Emily Chen's life. He gave Marcus permission to trust his judgment again, proved that protocols matter less than outcomes when death has a timer, and demonstrated that the most important skills from military service often find their highest purpose in civilian applications, where saving lives doesn't require creating casualties. Marcus Kane left the SEALs believing his judgment was broken after Syria. He found Emily because Odin refused to let detection skills atrophy. And together, they built an organization that proves warriors don't stop being warriors when they leave the military. They just find new ways to prove that sometimes the shocking decision everyone says is wrong turns out to be the only decision that matters when someone's dying, and you're the only one there with the skills to prevent it.